One for food as well. So.
That's fantastic. My daughter.
You're so smart. You need a good night.
The time is 7:01 p.m. and I'd like to call this District 204 regular action meeting to order. Marilyn, will you please call the roll?
Member Alvarez?
Present.
Member Albert?
Here.
Member Vita Daniels? Present. Member Dillon? Here. Member Gretsch?
Here.
Member Nava? Here. Member Thomas?
Here.
Great. I'd like to ask everyone to rise and participate in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed? And the motion passes. Our next item is our first public participation opportunity. Thank you all for joining this evening's meeting. As is the case with all of our meetings, there are two opportunities for the public to share their comments with the Board of Education, one now and one before we adjourn our meeting. For our first public comment session, we will be listening to all comments from those who signed up prior to the start of our meeting. After we finish the agenda items tonight, we will open up our second public comment session where we will hear any comments and feedback from anyone who would like to comment after hearing our discussion this evening. If you would like to participate in this second public comment session, please fill out a form during our meeting and give it to Mary Lynn Mescalina, who's outside the door at the table. And we will call speakers in the order in which the forms were received. The board appreciates and values hearing comments from our community. Please understand that the board does not engage in dialogue or discussion during our meeting. If there is a specific question or comment that requires follow-up, the appropriate administrator will respond at a later time. Finally, each individual addressing the board will have 3 minutes for their comments, and we appreciate your cooperation with keeping to this time limit. In accordance with board policies 2230 and 830, thank you so much for keeping tonight's meeting respectful and civil for all in attendance. Marilyn, will you please call our first speaker?
Lisa Hammond. Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm here as a representative of the Lyons Township Para Association. Thank you for giving us an opportunity to share our school year thus far. It's crazy to believe that we're actually heading into the holidays. Over the past 3 months, we paras have been working diligently to provide mandated and oftentimes non-mandated services for our students. The sheer number of students needing support is growing exponentially, not just at LT, but over the state and country. I'm proud to say that we have a dedicated, hardworking, and educated paraprofessional staff at LT. On a daily basis, we problem solve, change course, and make the day's work for the benefit of all students. Oftentimes, these days become even more challenging due to the frequent schedule changes we encounter due to teacher and para absences. We also have had, unfortunately, lost a number of great paras to positions outside of LT. Yvonne and I, who's my co-president, we've been meeting with Dr. Waterman, Dr. Owens, and Ed Piotrowski in order to problem solve some of our grievances and concerns, such as safety, proper training, and overall communication. We are working on communicating in an open, professional manner. Our hope and expectation is to iron out some of our concerns beneficially for all involved. Moving forward, we are going to be meeting on a monthly basis with Dr. Waterman. We're working even harder than ever to support our students and continue to hope that we make an important difference in the overall school culture at LT. We strive to be acknowledged and valued for the many roles that we accomplish on a daily basis. In closing, we'd like to give a huge thank you to the Teachers Union for their continued support, and we'd like to thank all of you for your time and effort, and cheers to a wonderful holiday weekend.
Thank you so much, Lisa.
Thank you.
Andrew Johannes.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
October and November always seem to be very busy times during the school year. Fall sports are wrapping up, winter sports begin. competitions for clubs ramps up, and seniors complete their applications. This includes many letters of recommendation from the teachers. The teachers wish the seniors good luck as they anxiously await their acceptance letters. We know that regardless of the path that students plan to take, they will be successful due to the excellent education they have received here at LT. This past Monday, we welcomed the class of 2028 during the freshman kickoff event. I would like to thank all the teachers and sponsors for their hard work and dedication in helping this event be successful. We truly have a plethora of sports clubs and activities for students to choose from, and our dedicated faculty run these sports clubs and activities on top of their teaching responsibilities. The extracurricular activities are a testament to the teacher-student collaboration that makes LT such a special place. The LTA applauds the board's decision to join the lawsuit against Meta and the other social media companies. Teachers have firsthand knowledge of the negative effects that cell phones and social media have on students. This includes increased anxiety and depression, as well as a decline in academic performance. More and more research is being released that reinforces the negative impact that social media is having on students. There has been improvement this year in student cell phone use, and for that we'd like to appreciate and thank the assistant principals and their help. The LTA encourages an annual review of the current cell phone policy in order to modify it so that it better reflects our concerns and the research about the adverse effects about cell phones and social media have on students. The teachers would be willing participants in this conversation. November is a time of gratitude. I am grateful for the opportunity to represent the amazing faculty. They have given me this great responsibility, and I do not take it lightly. I am also grateful for all of our students. It seems like every week they exceed our highest expectations and achieve amazing things. I am also grateful for Dr. Tyrell. She is a constant advocate for the students and LT's #1 cheerleader. The teachers appreciate her enthusiasm and dedication to LT. Finally, I would like to congratulate a few outstanding performances. This is going to take a while. So first, we'd like to congratulate the boys soccer team on finishing second in state. During the playoff run, head coach Paul Lovato earned his 300th career win. Congratulations to the head coach Mike Danner and the boys cross country team for finishing 4th in state. Congratulations to Eric Simon and the girls cross country team in finishing 12th in state. Congratulations to Scott Walker and this girls swimming and diving team on finishing 4th in state, which included many individual award winners. Chris Thomas was a finalist for the Best Radio Station Advisor. Congratulations to him and the students of the staff of WLTL who attended the John Jury High School Radio Awards ceremony at North Central College this weekend. WLTL came away with several honors for their exceptional work during the 22-23 school year. Lyon newspaper traveled to the National Scholastic Press Association, Journalism Education Association, National High School Journalism Convention in Boston. Oh, that was a mouthful. 5 Lyon newspaper students won awards. Congrats to the students and the sponsor, Jason Scales. Members of Tabulae and also attended the National Scholastic Press Association. I'll just skip all the rest there. At the convention, 3 students won individual awards. Menagerie took 6th place in Best of Show category for art and lit magazines. Congratulations to the sponsors Joseph Maffey, Mary Wolchek, and Angela Gutierrez. Congrats to Lawrence Keller, who put on another successful show. Lawrence Keller is retiring in June, so this, unfortunately, is his last performance that we get to enjoy. I would like to recognize Angie Patel, Dave Stormont, and Mark Kaczynski for another successful snowball. This is an event that every student seems to want to go on, and it's always popular. And finally, I'd like to recognize the music department, Mark Dahl, David Hartley, Jan Matthews, Paul Meisty, and John Music. This is a busy time of year for them, but their concerts have become such a special holiday tradition for many community members in the area. There have been many amazing things to celebrate this past month, obviously. So that's my report. So I wish you all a happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see you next month. Thank you.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving, Andrew.
Lachlan McElroy.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to pose a question. How many of you enjoy a morning coffee? It's likely a small expenditure, just a few dollars, but as we all know, even the smallest costs add up. Now, what if that coffee suddenly rose by 50 cents, $1, $2? We probably would reconsider our choices. This is the financial dilemma faced daily by students in our cafeteria. My name is Lachlan McElroy. I'm a senior here at LT, but tonight I'm not here just as a student, but as a representative of many voices that often go unheard in the bustling hallways of our school. Through a survey I conducted of over 70 of my peers, I've come to a few takeaways. We're asking the board to consider a solution for cheaper and more affordable options for lunches. We're asking the board to consider a solution to offer students healthier and more wholesome food options. And finally, we're asking the board to consider a solution for South Campus students routinely spending 75% of their lunch period in line. Starting with costs, let's consider this in the context of our school's substantial budget and the significant funds allocated to our food service provider, Sodexo, a contract that cost the district over $1,073,000 this year. The rising price in our cafeteria begs the question, are we, as an educational institution, facilitating a system that might inadvertently contribute to food insecurity among our students? I've learned that a staggering 65% of students spend between $5 and $14 per day on lunch, and annually this means a student could spend upwards of $1,150 on lunch alone, and the situation has worsened by a nearly 20% hike on staple items this year. This is a significant cost for teenagers, and many of whom are saving for college, helping their families with expenses, or simply don't have a job. It's not just an issue of economics, it's a matter of fairness and nutrition. Next up, the current state of our heavily processed and small portion sizes are meals that leave stomachs growling, prices that make wallets weep, and a nutritional value that is at best questionable. The very students who are expected to excel academically are the ones struggling with hunger pangs and falling asleep during their afternoon classes. This is not conducive to learning, nor does it align with the values we hold dear at LT. Furthermore, let's talk about time. The precious 20 minutes allocated for lunch simply doesn't cut it at South Campus, as students routinely have to wait in line for close to 15 to 20 minutes just to receive their food, leaving little time to eat, let alone enjoy a meal. Nutrition is not just about the food on the plate, it's also about the environment in which we consume it. A rushed lunch is a stressful lunch, and stress does not sit well with digestion or with the educational environment we strive to create. In light of these facts, I stand before you to propose a reevaluation of our partnership with Sodexo. Are there alternatives that can offer a more affordable, nutritious, and satisfying meals? And can we make changes to assure that students have enough time to even receive their food? These are the questions we must ask ourselves if we are to honor our commitment to the health and well-being of every student who walks through our doors. I'm not here to cast blame, but to call for action. This is an opportunity for us to lead by example and to show that LT prioritizes the nourishment and health of its students just as highly as it values their education. I urge you to consider these points seriously, as our school is more than a place of learning. It's a community, a home away from home for many, and in this home, every student deserves access to affordable, nutritious food that fuels their growth in every sense. Thank you for your time and for the consideration of the well-being of LT students.
Thank you so much.
That concludes the public comments.
All right, thank you so much, everybody. Okay, next we will move on to our agenda items, and first we have our student representative report, and for that I will turn it over to Ms. Sophia Smansky.
Thank you. This month has been a really busy month for LT students so far. For athletics, congratulations to girls swimming and diving for placing 4th at state, with many placing in individual events. Girls cross country placed 12th at state, and boys cross country placed 4th at state. LT athletes also attended LT signing day to commit to the universities they will play for. Boys soccer won 2nd place at state, football made it to the IHSA playoffs, and girls volleyball beat Downers Grove North to win the regional championship. Girls golf team placed 10th at state, and girls tennis won the Naperville Invite in number 2 doubles. For activities, Older Adult Connections hosted a Halloween event at Plymouth Place. Photography Club is having a Christmas photo shoot for the teachers' children for holiday cards. Cyber Defense placed 2nd for the state qualifier and top 100 out of over 3,500 teams nationally for the Cyber Patriot competition, and 2 out of the 3 squads are competing at the platinum tier in the state competition. Zoology Club is planning on getting a new snake. Interact Club is hosting a book drive and collecting gently used to new children's books. Student Council hosted a blood drive last week. Operation Snowball had the retreat last weekend. Menagerie Volume 48 placed 6th in the nation in the Literary Arts Magazine category in the NSPA Best of Show Awards. The Lion newspaper recently went to Boston and took home 5 individual awards. Model UM won Best Large Delegation at Waubonsee and won lots of awards at St. Ignatius. The junior class board is making final exam survival kits for students to buy before finals. Greek Club hosted an appetizer party last week to try out authentic Greek food and are planning their annual outing to a Greek restaurant. Debate attended ICDA 2 and 3, where 3 people placed top 16 overall and got 4th place overall as a team. French Club recently won the Golden Squirrel at the World Cup, and they also hosted a crepe making meeting. And WLTL attended an award show where they won lots of awards, including 2 first places. Music Improv is going to play at the Bethlehem Retirement Center in December. Speech Team won 7th out of 15 schools at their last competition, with 5 people placing. Italian Club hosted a pizza fundraiser and participated in the World Cup. Ukrainian Club had their first meeting of the year. Varsity Palms won first place at Wheaton North. And lots of clubs and sports attended the Future Freshman Night to show the wide variety of clubs that LT has. That's all.
That's all. Wow, thank you so much, Sophia. That's wonderful. There's never a dull moment here at LT, and we love hearing from you, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm Sophia.
Thanks, Sophia.
Yeah. All right, next we will have the superintendent report and Dr. Waterman.
Thank you, President Albert. I'll start with just a quick logistical item. Since the October meeting, our district has received 3 FOIA requests, and all of those are included in a hard copy paper within your personal board packet here this evening. So just to get that out of the way. I also want to just highlight, by now the board is aware that Dawn and I received a message from the Village of Willow Springs on Saturday with an invitation to join or to participate or attend a town hall meeting on Tuesday, November 28th. At this point, I think myself and Brian Stashak and our legal counsel are planning to attend the meeting. I do understand that Dawn is not able to attend, but that Vice President Gretsch has agreed to attend in her place. So we'll plan to attend the meeting and report back to the board with an update on December 4th. Also, part of my report this evening, Shelley Taylor, our chair of our LT Community Advisory Council, is here to present a summary of the feedback from our last meeting. We had a really good discussion with our community on our associate schools and the different ways that we collaborate with our associate schools. And so, you know, we really got some good feedback on different ways that we can continue to work with our associate schools and collaborate with them in the future. So with that, I'm happy to introduce Shelley, who's going to present the consensus feedback.
Thanks.
Hi, Shelley.
Good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to give an update. As Dr. Waterman said, we had a great presentation. We had great turnout and a very attentive audience. This is a topic that seems to come up whenever we discuss anything else. There's always questions about how we're working with the feeder schools and making sure that, you know, things are coordinated and the students are coming prepared. So it was really great to hear directly from some of them. So we always ask 3 questions after the presentation, and the first thing asked was, what ideas do you have for continued articulation and collaboration between associate schools and LT that would support students and families as they transition to high school? So the group, one of the things we heard about, you usually talk more about what the presentation was. One of the things we heard about was some of the new activities we just heard this evening about with welcoming new freshmen and some of the expanded activities. And the group were very happy to see that. Also a lot of appreciation for the updated website, making it easier to find things. Some of the suggestions, most of them kind of centered around increasing personal interactions or making the experience more personal is maybe a better way to say it. We talked about demystifying the high school experience. Most students are coming from much smaller classes when they come to LT. And that can be kind of an overwhelming and scary experience. One suggestion was having almost like a welcome week similar to the way college would have. Again, we have, as we've heard tonight, so many great options for the students in terms of elective classes, clubs and activities, and with that can also come overwhelm of too many choices. So, you know, finding ways to make that easier, you know, consolidating, especially for electives, courses that are particularly available to freshmen, to kind of shorten that list for them could be helpful. Lots of talk about some kind of mentorship and buddy students, and this was for both students and parents. Pairing them ideally with alumni from their own middle school, where they'll have some shared experience to talk about. Also using social media. One of the comments I saw said Facebook. I thought that was kind of funny. A parent, clearly, and not a student, who said that. But using social media to offer questions and answers, tips, giving students an opportunity to share their experiences, maybe some videos, a day in the life of a student. I know a lot of great things are created here, and probably some of those could be repurposed for some of those uses. We also asked in what ways you think, so there's a new document created that kind of outlines expectations in core areas for students entering freshman year, and what that looks like, and what they're expected to be coming from their feeder schools, knowing how to do. So what are some ways that both schools, both the high school and the associate schools, could use, how they could use that document with both students and parents? One thought was reaching back further, even like to 6th grade, and really starting to work with this document and helping everybody understand what we're working toward, not starting it in 8th grade. I don't think it really just starts in 8th grade, but it was a concern that came up. Using the document to help parents and students understand high school class placement, so that they understand both how to prepare for it, to kind of aim for where they want to land, as well as to understand how decisions are being made. And then generally using that to increase alignment on terms used and requirements, to ensure that the students across all the feeder districts have a smooth transition, so that everyone's kind of speaking the same language, has the same expectations, and has the same expectations put on them when they prepare. And the last question we asked was, what important information do incoming students and families need to learn about before starting high school? And what supports do they need? A big theme that came through was helping students have a sense of belonging, helping them overcome anxiety of this transition to a much larger school that we discussed earlier. Emphasizing the importance of clubs and electives, making sure that there's follow-up, so when students have showed interest, making sure that the representatives of the clubs and activities are following up if they've gotten emails, they're posting on social media, they're making sure students know where they're posting on social media, because there are a lot of accounts associated with high school as well. Ensuring that students and parents are aware of available resources and how to access them. And providing support for different expectations. Grading systems might be different. We talked about there were more elective options. Establishing good time management and good study skills, because the level of work changes a little bit when they get here. So generally putting all those things in place to set them up for success. And that was a summary. As I think Dr. Waterman said, there's full minutes from the meeting available on our website and probably in your packets.
Yep.
So thank you very much. Have a great Thanksgiving. Have a great break if you get one.
Yeah. Thank you, Shelley. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Shelley.
Yeah, as always, we archive the slide deck, the presentation materials, all the resources on our LTCAC website, plus all the raw data. So Shelley presented kind of a summary of some of the important points, but we take all the raw data from the table feedback and put that on the website as well. So, and obviously share that with all of our leadership teams here. One of the things that she referenced was this high school readiness document. We look forward to sharing more about that exciting project with the board here in about a month. We're going to do that during the Goal 4 update on December 18th. That's been a passion project over the last 8 months or so for our leadership team. And to Shelley's point about using that earlier than 8th grade, like that is the goal. Like I know I'm having conversations with our superintendents. Our feeder schools will have the opportunity to use this information to really inform programming and get to and help get students ready for high school. And so that we're excited about sharing more about that with the board here in about a month. And then our next LTCAC meeting will be January 31st, and we're going to dig into Goal 1, which is academics. So we'll do a little assessment update and get some feedback on academic programming. So, and I will put out the shameless plug again, like we have as much as we can. We are always looking for LTCAC members. So if you're interested in joining and are not already part of it, please consider joining. So we're always looking to expand that group. Thanks again, Shelley. We celebrated, sorry.
I mean, because I was at the LTCAC, and I know there were some representatives from the other schools. Would that document and like the notes from there be helpful to share with all of the feeder schools coming in?
We already have, yeah. So
Okay.
it's already been shared with the superintendents. Dr. Tyrell is working with the principals. Our division chairs are going to use it during the placement process, so it will be shared at all levels with all feeder schools.
But I think that's really like a key thing to
Huge.
share to the people that came, really, like how much effort was put into, because I thought that was a really meaty,
Yep.
like, conversation at my table,
Mhm.
to really, that it's not just fluff.
Right.
I
It's
think
it's formalized really the skills that we're looking for by content area for incoming freshmen.
I thought that was really great, and like so much can come from that.
Yep.
So maybe like at the next one, just to kind of share with people,
Right.
like what, instead of just like it came back to the board to say it really has lasting impacts about the efforts that everybody made to be there that night.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just a question. So, I mean, I understand the readiness document is sorely needed, but then also, because this has come up before a number, like each year, with transition to LT, like would it be, I know that there are different parts spread out across different committees, but would it be something to consider that we have like a committee that is like focused on this to like look at how parts can be, or best in class can be integrated into like, even further back from their transition now, from like their welcome in November, but then what are other things that can be done leading up to all the way through August that makes it a
Start
more
to finish,
integrated experience?
Yeah, that's been an evolution, right? That whole process from the time really eighth graders start their eighth grade year all the way till they become freshmen. There's so much packed into that, from orientation programs like just the event that we had last week, to academic updates, to elective showcases, to now roadshow. We used to have that, we brought it back, all the way through freshman experience day, really, and beyond. So that's a process that has evolved significantly, and I know our building leadership team, our student services division are always looking at different ways to evolve that. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, so, but like making sure that there's accountability, like that it is more formalized, that it is being addressed, and especially with the feedback that you're getting from the LTCAC, and like some of those ideas, if those are worth considering.
Absolutely.
Like again, I just don't want it to just sit there on the document and then it's not looked at in a more holistic way to see how some of those ideas can be brought into the whole entire experience from the loop that you just described.
Yeah, any of the LTCAC feedback, we review that at every leadership level to make sure that we're picking out those points that we want to incorporate into future planning. So this would be no different, where we're going to look at what the feedback was from November 1st and make sure that when we look at what we're planning for next year, what are some really good ideas that we could incorporate.
And I would just add to what Dr. Waterman shared. I've already shared the feedback. We presented with, Dr. Waterman and myself presented with other principals from the associate schools, and then another superintendent as well. So it was a really cool collaborative presentation. But I've shared all the LTCAC feedback with the associate school principals already, because we're constantly getting their feedback. They hear from their students and families as well, to bring that voice to kind of updates that we might need to make to our transition process. Events, placement conversations, communications that we're sending. And some of the feedback, we weren't able to share all of the articulation that we do. And so some of the points of feedback actually are things that we already do. So just making sure that our community is aware of those things, and then thinking about communications that would enhance the process, what would enhance events, what will make our students feel more comfortable. So that process has already started.
And we're going to talk about this next month also?
Yep.
The document?
The document, yeah.
Because the only thing I was thinking is we're talking about hearing that they want more personal experiences, a mentor program, they want to foster that sense of belonging. Is there a way that we can incorporate getting them into our clubs and activities earlier? Just, hey, come to a meeting as an eighth grader and just see what it's about, so that by the time you walk through the door, and I don't know if there's some liability or issues with that, but can we get them in the door to some of our clubs and activities earlier, so that when they get in our doors, they already kind of get a sense, but it's not as scary as you think it is.
I think it's a great point. One of the points of feedback that I think one of our students actually shared, when we went out on the road show, we asked students some questions because we want to bring their voice to the process as well. We asked them, what are they most excited about? What are they most nervous about? And what do they need more information about? And students shared they'd like to know kind of that, some opportunities, because we have a lot of them. POMS does a dance clinic. Different organizations do community-based activities. So how are we sharing that information so that we can connect to students' interests before they're even here, right? We started it off with the kickoff. Co-curriculars and athletics are presenting, right, sharing, student leaders, advisors, which really are the best ambassadors of our programs, but then making sure that we're being explicit about what that schedule of events looks like for our students and families who are interested. Band and choir, they do an awesome job. They have events all throughout the year. So how can we make sure that everybody knows about those opportunities to get that taste even earlier? It's a great point.
Get them enthused about LT as early as possible, and then just continue to have events and information throughout. So, questions or feedback, thoughts on that? And we could probably build some of that transition program into our December 18th discussion too, just so we show like a picture of kind of what happens from start to finish. I think
that'd be great.
That would be good. All right, I know we celebrated this publicly last week, but now that we're at a board meeting, I just want to mark the official statewide observance of School Board Member Appreciation Day was last Wednesday, November 15th, and I think it serves as a great opportunity to really show support for school boards collectively, but also as the individuals, like the 7 of you who serve on a school board. It's not always been easy to be a school board member, right? Especially over these last couple of years. And I just want to take the opportunity to share my appreciation. And I know that our community supports all of you and thanks you a lot for all of your service as a school board member here in Illinois, especially. So, thank you.
Thank you so much.
And then I want to wish all of our students and our staff and our parent guardians and our whole school community a wonderful and very happy Thanksgiving Day weekend. That concludes my report.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much. Okay, next we will move on to new business, and we will start with our new business action items. We'll begin with the 2023 tentative tax levy. And for that, I will turn over to Director Brian Stachak.
Thank you, President O'Bara. Excuse me. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to take a look, our first look at the actual proposed tax levy for 2023. And again, we're saying 2023 because we're always a year in arrears in Cook County. Actually, so are all of the counties in the state. And so really what I want to start focusing on is on page 5. We're going to kind of look at the macro, and then we'll get down to the micro in terms of these actual numbers here. And so really what we do is we start the process by looking at our prior year extension. If you look at the top of the page there, the prior extension of 2022 was $77.4 million. The Consumer Price Index in December of 2022 was actually 6.5%. However, because of the property tax extension limitation law, we are capped at an aggregate extension of 5%. So what we simply do is we take that $77.4 million, multiply that by 5%, and then we come up with a number for 2023 of $81,229,000. So almost $3.9 million increase in that tax levy. Then what we do is we have to project our equalized assessed valuation, the EAV of the district. And so right now we're projecting about a 15% increase for existing properties, and I actually think it could be higher than that. I think 15 is a little bit more in line with the history, but I think the market conditions from last year might suggest that it would be higher. But again, we're looking at the number and trying to make a reasonable guess in terms of where that's going to go. So really, we're projecting that the 2023 EAV to be at $3.9, almost $4 billion, $3,971 million. And then we add in $50 million of new property. Now, I don't actually think we're going to have $50 million of new property, but the goal is to make sure that we capture all of that new property in the first year that it comes onto the tax rolls. So when we add in that $50 million of new property, we come to a new EAV plus new property of $4,021 million, okay? Now, the reason those numbers are important is because now we start to develop some projected tax rates. So if you take The $81,229,000, which is the total of the increase of the 5%, you divide that by our projected EAV of the $3.9 billion, we get a new tax rate of 2.0452 on the operating funds. Then what we do, because the county does not include the new property in on the initial calculation because it's outside of that tax cap piece, then we take our limiting rate, the 2.0452, we multiply that by our total EAV, including the new property now, of the $4,021,000,000, and we come up to an aggregate extension of $82,251,000. Everybody with me so far?
Yep.
All right, good. So really what that does is that is a 6.32% increase over the prior year, 5% of that attributable to the CPI, and then 1.32% of that attributable to the new property. Now again, if we only have $20 million of new property, that's all that we're going to have is $20 million of new property. And so just to kind of give you an idea, down here at the bottom of the page, I talked about the fact that we're essentially the new property number is about a little over $1 million. And if new property was $25 million, then we'd be probably about $500,000 of additional money on top of that for the new property. Again, we're trying to make some educated guesses here, but we're always better to be higher on that new property number than lower. We want to make sure we capture everything in that first year, okay? Now we're going to go on to page 7, which is where we get into sort of that micro piece. And now we start looking at it by each individual fund that we utilize. And so if you look in that middle box, which is really from, first of all, let's start back at the top. So our 2022 EAV, $3,453,000,000. There's that 15% increase. Our new property estimate on line 4. Our total EAV, the $4,021,000,000, and then a total EAV percent change of 16.45%. Again, we're trying to make reasonable guesses at this time. We won't actually know this number, the true number, until we get the final levy from the county. Hopefully next year it will actually be in July and August, as they typically do. We just received this last one at the end of October. So, and as everybody knows, your property tax bills have been delayed, and that's the reason that we're delayed on some of these some of this information as well. Now if we look in the middle of the page there on really lines 8 through 23. So now what we do is we start to break down that rate by fund, okay? The education fund, O&M, transportation, IMRF, and so we break those down by what we project those to be in each fund, again, still equaling our 2.0452 projected tax rate. And then in that next column B, the 22 levy extension, what we do is we say, okay, these were the actual extension dollars in each one of those funds in 22. Again, bringing us back to that $77.4 million number. Now what we do is we want to have numbers for our projected 23 levy that equal our $81,229,000, which is the 5% increase. So I projected numbers in there under that column C, and you'll see that I'm actually putting most of those dollars, the new money, into the education fund. That is where our largest number of expenses are. And really in the other funds, we're adding a little bit here and there, but the majority of it is going to the education fund, again, which is where the majority of our expenditures come from. And so you see those numbers there. And then we add in an amount for the new property, which we just talked about. And so that's another $1,022,000. And so, again, that is also projected by the rate in each fund. And so then finally, in the total levy projection there, that column, it says C plus D, you would see all of the individual levies for each one of the funds. If you look at the bottom, again, that total increase would be almost $4.9 million, but again, $50 million of that is new property, which really don't anticipate it being that high. But nonetheless, that's what we would put out there in the community when we advertise for our truth and taxation hearing. So the increase would be 6.32% on those operating funds. Any questions on any of that so far? Okay. Then we kind of jump down to the bottom there where we also add in the bond and interest levy as well. And so our bond and interest levy is projected to be $2,839,000 dollars for this, for tax year '23. And so that then brings our total levy, including the $82,251,000 plus the $2,839,000 for the bond and interest levy, to $85,091,380, which is a total increase now of all funds of 6.13% over the prior year. And again, those are the numbers that will go out, and I have a copy of the Truth in Taxation hearing notice that will be published. We have an actual timeline, no more than 14 and no less than 7 days before the hearing at the December meeting, of which we have to put that information out there. Just touching briefly on that Truth in Taxation hearing, the district has always had a practice of having this hearing regardless of whether the ask is over 5% or not. We are required to do it if the increase is over 5% from the prior year, as we are here, but the district has done it in past years when the increase was 3.5%, 2%, whatever the case may be. So we've always had that Truth in Taxation hearing, and of course, this year we would be required to do that. Any questions on those numbers from those 3 pages, 5, 6, and 7?
So with the $50 million of new property, that 1 million, I went off of that page, so that 1,022,000
Yep.
is a big area where we're going to expect to see a swing.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you don't model out what that swing is because we really don't know, but did you look at, what in prior years, we don't know of any big property developments going up in?
No, I mean, we have some new property. Last year, what do we have, 20, and I have it actually on the next document there on page 8, which shows that history.
Oh, yep, perfect.
And if you actually look on line 6 in that document, you'd see our new property going back to the tax year of 2017 at $38.1 million. And then you go to column G, last year we were at $20,553,000. And again, the highest year we've had of those last 6 was in 2020, where we had $41.8 million. So that's kind of why we're still using that $50 million number to say, look, we're going to be covered here.
Yep.
And again, just to give you that idea, if it was $25 million, we'd expect to see, instead of that $1,022,000, probably closer to $500,000 of additional money.
Okay.
And again, those new property numbers are properties that are coming onto the tax rolls that were not there in prior years.
Yeah,
Okay.
we have to go around and find it, right? Like,
Yeah, literally.
that's our response. Like, there's no obligation to the counties or the cities to report that to us. We have to.
That's correct. Yeah. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And it's a one-time thing, right? You have to catch them in that year.
For the most part.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is because some of the law has changed where you can go back and you can recapture prior years, but it's really kind of messy. Let's put it that way. We're better off to capture it in that first year, and then at some point in the future, if we decide, well, we want to abate some tax or something along those lines, you can do that, but then you have it in your base and you don't have to worry about it trying to recapture it going forward. So we're really best to grab it in that first year.
So it's better to overestimate.
Correct.
I have a question on page 6.
Yes.
And it could just be my ignorance here, but that's the third sentence. It says in addition, well, the first sentence, in addition to the amount levied by the district, public act signed by governor, provided that some property tax funds paid out by the district from November 1st through October 31st
Right.
of the prior year will be added back to the levy in the next tax year.
Correct.
Those funds are not subject to the property extension limitation law. I guess, okay, can you give me an example? Because the dates are kind of confusing me from November 1st through October 31st.
Right.
Like so.
So first of all, let me just briefly touch on that.
Okay.
That particular law said that there's certain tax refunds that we are provided to pay back, right? So people who challenge their property taxes, we pay back those refunds to them if they are successful in that challenge in that next year, essentially. So from November 1st of 2022 through November 1st of 2022 through October 31st of 2023.
Okay.
What they look at is they say, okay, District 204, how much did you pay back and which refunds actually qualify to be refunded to you under this new law. We historically pay back about $2 million a year in property tax refunds.
Okay.
And so this $1.3 million now is new. This is the second year, I believe, if I remember correctly, that this is being added back in. So these are dollars that we would not have had, but now we do. And again, it's based on those refunds that we pay out throughout the prior year.
That we pay out.
Correct.
So it's basically credits that, I guess I'm still a little confused.
Yeah, it's actual dollars. So
Okay.
what happens is when somebody challenges their property tax
Okay.
and they win,
Yeah.
okay? So they have a reduction in their EAV. What ends up happening then is there's a refund that's owed to them.
Okay.
So what the county does is when the county provides us a distribution of property taxes, they actually reduce that dollar amount
Okay.
that they're distributing to us
Yes.
in that distribution, and they list it out specifically as refunds, and they say, okay, here are the number of refunds, the amount that you owe back to these individual members. So they pay them back, take it out of our current extension,
Okay.
and then we are now being reimbursed with those dollars through the levy itself.
Okay, I didn't realize that. So you actually get reimbursed even though those dollars went back to the taxpayers?
Correct. It's really a redistribution of those refunds amongst all of the existing taxpayers is what it is.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Interesting.
Sure. Okay. Any additional questions on any of that at all? Yeah, that is a good question. So, again, just kind of going through, we always like to have that history page here so you can see what's going on. So I kind of have the last 6 years, and really the reason I usually have the last 6 years is because you'll notice that 3 of those years on the top are in yellow, and those are reassessment years, triennial reassessment years in the south side of Cook County. And so in this particular levy, the 2023 levy, it is a Cook County south side triennial reassessment, and so that's why we're kind of expecting some of those larger increases in EAV. In the off years, there's sort of an estimation that goes on, because what Cook County does is they go to the north side, then the city, and then the south side. And so that's how they reassess those properties. And so our reassessment 2017, 2020, and now 2023 is that actual reassessment year. And those are the years you'll typically see where we have a higher jump in our EAV. If you look at 2020, the EAV percent change was 15%. And so we're expecting that at least this time around, and then some more. And again, as I said, you have new property, the total tax rate, the CPI numbers there for the last 6 years plus the current year, and then what we advertised as the changes, and so those are the advertised changes, the numbers that went out in the Truth and Taxation hearing. You have the capped funds and then all funds, capped funds, the operating funds, all funds then includes that bond and interest levy like we just talked about. And then I have what the actual extensions were for those years and the actual percentage changes for those years as well. When you look at those extension numbers, what we have to go on right now are just our estimates. So next year when I update that for 2023, I will have those actual numbers, and then we'll see how close we actually were. Any questions on that history at all?
Thank you.
Sure. Let's go over to page 9, because this is always one that people like to look at. And so what we do with page 9, and again, we're making estimates. We have to know that here. But we take various properties, valued properties in the district, and say, what does this levy look like, and what does it do to the individual property owner who's paying these taxes? And so we kind of run the gamut here of properties that you would find in the district. I've used these same numbers over the years because we do have properties that are valued at these dollar amounts. And so, property 1, almost a $1.2 million property. Property 2, something about $776,000. Property 3, about $470,000, and property 4, about $182,000. And so, really, starting on line 6 through 17, what we look at there is we go through the actual, these numbers are actually, pulled from what the tax bill calculations would look like. And so if you took a $1.2 million, roughly a $1.2 million property, you look at what the assessment would be, apply the multiplier for 2022, and then our tax rate, you would see that that property in 2022 would have paid $7,906 to Lyons Township High School District 204 for our portion of the tax bill only. That does not include any of the other taxing bodies in the community. Now, if you go down to 2023, again, we're making some estimates here because we're looking at, a 15% increase in the EAV. We're looking at the estimated multiplier, which we believe will be the case. We're applying then on line 25 our total tax rate, estimated total tax rate. And then, of course, we have the tax, the expected bill before the exemptions. Then we add the exemptions back in, and the new tax bill would expected to be $8,105, so an increase of about $200, $199 to that individual home. And that really follows through the same way on each of all the additional 3 properties that we have here as well. Again, I would say there are a lot of assumptions here, and one of the assumptions is that, first of all, we as a district do not control the assessment piece of this equation. And so what this particular spreadsheet assumes is that everybody goes up by the 15% that we talked about, right? And I can tell you that's not going to happen. What's going to happen in the community is somebody's assessment may go up 20% and somebody's goes up 5%. And so once that happens, if your assessment goes up 20 and yours goes up 5, it truly is a pie chart where here's the total dollars, and if my piece of the pie gets a little bit bigger, somebody's gets a little bit smaller, right? So it's almost impossible to say exactly what's going to happen until after it happens, but this gives you an idea, all things considered equal, 15% raise across the board, what happens to the individual property tax bills. And it's the best that we can do at this particular point. But again, we don't control that assessment process, and once those bills come out, that's when we finally know what those individual assessments went up by. I don't really see them going down in this, but they certainly are going to go up by varying percentages throughout the community. We work with the aggregate number of the 15%, and then we apply that to each individual tax bill here for this exercise anyway.
So, in a reassessment year like I think this year, then you anticipate that there are more challenges?
It's a great question.
The owners to their assessment to then, like in the past when there's been like a reassessment, do we pay out more than normal?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the answer is a little complicated. And the reason I say that is because, so we do anticipate probably more objections coming in this year, especially considering, look, if my property goes up 20% and my neighbor's 3 blocks down is only 10%, I'm going to say, well, wait a minute. Now, there may be some valid reasons for that, and so all of that has to be looked at. But here's one of the issues with it. One of the issues is that the county does not settle these in a, I don't want to say they don't settle them in a timely manner, but what ends up happening are the refunds that come in typically are over potentially the last 5 to 6 years. We've had refunds that come in as far back as 15 years, right? They finally settle something and we get a refund. That's not the bulk of those. But what ends up happening is when you look at all those refunds, they continually come in the current fiscal year, but they could be from 4, 5, 6 years ago as they're settled. So part of the answer to your question is yes, we anticipate more this year, but also we will still have objections coming in from prior years, and we're paying those out in the current year when they settle as well. So hopefully that makes some sense as to why the numbers will vary, and they won't necessarily be higher in one year and then smaller in other years. We average, again, about $1.8 to $2 million in property tax refunds in a year, kind of regardless of the year.
So to clarify, when you say the refunds, that's coming from like certificate of errors, those kind of things?
That's correct.
And then like if you have it levied and then you're going to the Board of Appeals?
We're going to go to the
something
Board of
like that.
Review,
Right.
PTAB, the Circuit Court, any one of those can issue that
That's where
reduction.
you're going back for the 15 years. It depends on how long it's
That's
been
right.
lingering.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
And some of those things, particularly in the court, aren't settled real quickly. Sometimes it takes some time. Now, of course, when we have in the district, when we have commercial and industrial challenges, we typically will intervene in those. Because those are, when you look at the commercial and industrial properties, they are, or could provide substantial refunds. We typically don't go after individual or intervene in individual residential properties. We will on large condo properties, that sort of a thing. But individual homeowners, we typically will not look at, kind of try to intervene in those. And quite honestly, in order to get, so we're notified of any refund, or I'm sorry, any reduction in EAV that's over $100,000. You don't see that really on the residential properties, but we certainly do in the industrial and commercial properties. So we will intervene in those and try to reduce some of those refunds through that intervention process. Okay, any additional questions on that at all? All right, then on page 10, you have what will be the information that's published in the newspaper for the Truth and Taxation hearing. Again, all of those numbers that I just provided to you are here and brought forward, and this is the actual document that will go into the newspaper for the hearing. For the Truth and Taxation hearing on December 18th before we adopt the final levy. And then finally, what I have here is on page 11 and 12 is the actual levy from 2022. This is the information that we've just been provided with. I say just, but in the last month. And this is where we build all of those numbers from for the next year's levy. And if you really can't sleep, you can check my work and go back and forth from these to that prior page there and make sure that I have all the right numbers in there.
Thanks for using a different typeface too.
Yeah, no, this comes right from the county.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is helpful. And so really, that is what I think I wanted to talk about in this presentation. Certainly we don't take this lightly. This is the largest source of revenue for the district by far and away. As you can see, when we're talking about somewhere from $77 to $82 million worth of revenue. And so our largest source of that revenue, and I know there are obviously community members, taxpayers that are not appreciative of this, but at the end of the day, it's how the state of Illinois has chosen to fund their school districts. And so that's how we have to operate. And I know, again, people aren't happy with that. There are states that fund their schools differently, and I wouldn't say those ways are great either. It's just, but this is what the state says, and this is what we play by. So I'd be happy to answer any additional questions that you may have.
Are you going to put the residential property taxes grid, does that go on our website as?
We could certainly put it up there.
Did we do it last year?
We have a tax levy FAQ on the website right now.
Yeah.
It doesn't include, you're talking about that chart that has the 4 different types of houses. I don't believe that's included in there, is it?
No, it's not up there, but we can certainly put it up there.
Yeah, I thought, that's interesting. I thought we had put it up there last year just because it does such a good job of kind of walking.
I think so. We could add it.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that would be great, and updating that information would be helpful too.
Yeah, we've updated the information.
Okay.
And then we can add this kind of to it so that people can kind of reference it. Sure.
Okay, that would be
Sure.
great. All right, any further questions, comments by the board? Yeah, thank you so much, Brian.
Appreciate talking and spending
Yeah.
that time with it.
Yep, yeah, absolutely. Okay, with that, can I have a motion to approve the 2023 tentative tax levy as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Marilyn, will you please call the roll?
Member Alvarez?
Yes.
Member Vita Daniels?
Yes.
Member Dillon?
Yes.
Member Gretsch?
Yes.
Member Nava?
Yes.
Member Thomas?
Yes.
Member O'Bear?
Yes. Okay,
Great,
motion
thank you.
passes. Next, we have the consideration of the approval of the Knickerbocker roofing change order, and I'm going to throw it right back to you, Director Brian Stachek.
Thank you, President O'Bear. And just quickly going back to the levy, just so I didn't mention this earlier, we adopt the tentative tonight. We have to have 20 days between this one and then the adoption of the final in December. And then we will adopt the final at the December 18th meeting, and then I have to have it to the county before the last Tuesday in December, which is the deadline to do that. So, but we'll take care of that at the next couple of meetings. All right, anyway, thank you. So going back to the Knickerbocker Roofing and Paving Company, this is a change order. It's actually, these are the kinds of change orders I like.
Me too.
This is a deductive change order.
Yep.
And so this was the company, Knickerbocker Roofing, that did the clay tile roof out at the front exit and entrance at 5 this year that went down from there. They were way up on the top of the bell tower, doing all of that, and then going down to the, over the Reber Center there. They actually did a great job, which is excellent. The original contract was for $680,000. We had a $50,000 allowance in there for unforeseen conditions. We used $9,702.65 of that money, which is great. So $40,297.35 will be removed from that contract. So it's not money that we paid them, but it's not money now that it will be reduced from the total amount of the contract, which is always good. And so if you look on the next page there, page 14, you can see what the items were for the change orders there that total that dollar amount, a couple of minor things, and we certainly expect that to happen when you get into a roofing project that's extensive like that. But really, all in all, a real good outcome here. So essentially, like I said, $680,000, the original contract amount. We deduct that $40,297.35, and we come up with the final contract amount of $639,702.65. And so these are required to come to the board, whether they increase the contract or they decrease the contract amount. So this will close out this project. We will be paying Knickerbocker the final installment of that contract, and it'll be closed out at that time.
Excellent. I like these types of change orders
Yeah, me
too. I
too.
think we all do.
Yeah.
Great. Any comments or questions from the board? Okay. With that, can we have a motion to approve the Knickerbocker roofing change order as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Marilyn, will you please call the roll?
Member Beta Daniels?
Yes.
Member Dillon?
Yes.
Member Gretsch?
Yes.
Member Nava?
Yes.
Member Thomas?
Yes.
Member Alvarez?
Yes.
Member O'Bear?
Yes. Okay, excellent. We're moving on, and our next item is the 2023-2024 April calendar modifications for PSAT 9, PSAT 10, and the SAT, and we'll turn it over to Director Scott Eggerding.
Thank you, President O'Bear. I know we said we were done talking about the calendar. That was for the following year. This is actually for this year.
So this is unique. We typically don't come back to the board with a change for this year's calendar, but I think with the SAT being online now, it's created a unique opportunity.
Sure. So we had a very successful rollout of our online SAT, but on the day that people normally gave it, there were some significant outages at other schools. Took perhaps as long as an hour in some cases for kids to actually get logged in, and rooms doing it at different times meant kids started and ended and stopped at different times. So it was, thankfully, wasn't frustrating here, but it certainly was throughout a lot of the area. Christine Zeman and I are members of CADCA, which is Chicago Area Directors of Curriculum and Assessment. We met with the representatives from College Board, and they assured us this will never happen again. They've got more bandwidth than you could possibly imagine. That being said, we're still not 100% sure, right? That happened to be a test that was a national test date for NMSQT, so there were people all across the country. But this will be the test where every sophomore, junior, and senior, or freshman, sophomore, and junior will be taking tests throughout the state of Illinois. So it's still a pretty large number. So when we approved the original 23-24 calendar, it had Wednesday, Thursday. That was our only option. SAT, when we do the paper test, decides those days. And we've never really liked that for a number of reasons. By being in the middle of the week, the way we have a split campus, we don't have our seniors come.
And because of the amount of time the paper version took, it would often take 2 days. Well, it would frequently take 2 days for students with extended time. So our seniors would be off Wednesday and Thursday. Our juniors would take the test Wednesday, and those without extended time would be gone Thursday. And if you'll recall, last year we even did an e-learning day on that second day. Really not a great use of school time. And then because that e-learning day was a Thursday, our attendance on Friday was not very good either, and our seniors kind of took a 5-day weekend, right? So what we're proposing is, for all sorts of different reasons, to make sure we have kids in class more, that we have the right conditions to give an online test, and knowing that since we are going online, we can't test freshmen and sophomores on the same day. We would like to move the test date to the Friday, Monday. So Friday, the 12th of April, and Monday, the 15th. The Friday would be at South Campus, just freshmen taking the test. Sophomores would have a 3-day weekend with that Friday off. Juniors and seniors would have school, so that would be a regular week at North Campus. On the following Monday, the seniors and freshmen would have no school. The juniors would come and take the SAT, and the sophomores would take the PSAT 10. So this way it gives a 3-day weekend for at least 3 of our classes. It gets our students in school for more. And because of the online test, the 2-day requirement for students with extended time is nearly eliminated. There's just a very few students who would need to go onto a second day, and by very few right now, they can be counted on one hand. So that gives us an opportunity to, that student would be able to come in, and there would be students here as well. So those students. So in all, we don't really like to make a change like that, but we think this is actually a benefit. Just for future thoughts for 24-25, we'd already kept it Wednesday, Thursday, because Friday is a non-attendance day, the Friday before Easter, and so we feel that that would work just fine, and we could still do something similar and not have to worry about so many days off. So we're fine with next year's calendar. We just want to make a change to this one. I would bring back that late start on 10th of April as well. So.
Go ahead. So would the students that needed the 2-day extended time be at a disadvantage to have the weekend in?
They would take it Monday, Tuesday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I just don't want them to be at a disadvantage
Yeah,
on
no,
the weekend.
no,
Okay.
for sure.
Sorry, I missed that.
And historically, we've done Wednesday, Thursday for our testing?
Yeah, that's when SAT said we had to.
Which created seniors would be here Monday, Tuesday,
Yeah.
not here Wednesday, Thursday, technically here on Friday, but attendance was a challenge on Friday.
I'm just trying to think of the logistics that go into preparing for the test, for those, like switching it up, but, and there may be some advantages to those taking an SAT on a Monday, I mean, except it's Monday, but like in the sense that they would potentially have more time and maybe less homework. I'm just thinking like logistically through that, from an academic standpoint.
So Scott, if next year our 2024-25 calendar is going to remain on Wednesday and Thursday, well, just, and I apologize if I missed it, why couldn't we do Wednesday and Thursday this year?
So we have no school on the Friday next year.
Oh, the Friday thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. Okay.
We're trying to change up the attendance, and we're also trying to not do it on the same day as the rest of the state.
At least for the first go around.
Until you find out if that actually
Yeah.
caused any problems.
So it's a contingent plan to
So there's a
make
chance
sure that the
that-
state's not joshing us about having it figured out.
So there's a chance, though, that based on the outcomes of what happens this year, you might be asking us to change it next year.
Yeah, we
That's
don't know.
possible.
And I believe that the contract with SAT is in renewal status as well, so, I mean, I can't. You can only predict as far as they give you information.
It's good all change, yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
But they have given a window for that test, and so that window will remain no matter what. So at least online, you do have a number of weeks to choose to put it in, which actually will is really nice, a nice option.
I know that, sadly, because I was on the phone with College Board today about the schedules. The coordinator schedules aren't out there yet. But we anticipate this will also be with SA, and is that right?
Correct.
And we've been told at least, that at least earlier on, and I don't know if that's changed because I feel like there's been a lot of changes with the digital SAT over the last several months, but that all accommodation testing timing codes will be the same regardless of PSAT 8-9, PSAT 10, and SAT. Do you know if that's true and still legitimate, or?
Well,
part one.
Yeah, they're different because there's reader script on the paper, but it reads it to you on the computer. So it's actually, students aren't able to get all of the same accommodations, is my understanding, but that the accommodations, many of them are built into the online program, and that because of the shortness of the test and the fewer questions, all but one timing code can be done in one day. I don't know, Leslie, if you had any other.
No, that's my
pretty
understanding
much
as well.
all we know.
'Cause I was told, and it goes to my second question, but if I'm a time and a half on math on PSAT 8-9, time and a half on math on PSAT 10 and SAT, that those timing frames or timing codes are going to be the same across all three. Therefore, you can test kids with accommodations over multiple of those at the same time.
Meaning the actual amount of time allotted
Yes.
for that section?
Yeah.
I don't know on that. It's always been different because the total test time was shorter on
I
PSAT
believe
8,
they
9,
are
and
all
10.
the same in this one because it is more of an adaptive test. In other words, there's a series of questions, and then once those questions are done, they determine whether you go this route or that route for harder questions.
Because that would be huge. It would make scheduling and everything else much more easy to do. But I guess that goes back to Jill's question also. So regardless of year, PSAT 8-9, PSAT 10, or SAT, all two-day accommodations will go on Monday, Tuesday then?
All two-day accommodations will become one day, and the only reason why there's a two-day option for juniors is the requirement of the essay. But everyone else can get the whole test done on one day. So there's no more multiple day testing, which is a real benefit to
They didn't give us the timing code thing in the manual this year for the MMSQT, so I'm hoping they do it this year.
Yeah, we hope.
I believe from what Christine said, the only timing code that would span more than one day where College Board would require over 2 days would be 100% extended time. And that's fairly few and far between used. But
And it was my understanding that even with that, you could get it done in one day. It's really the addition of the essay as
The
a
essay,
requirement
yeah.
that causes a second day
Yeah.
for a student.
Thank you.
Other comments, questions from the board?
So then for clarity, the PSAT would be, the SAT would be on the 12th and the PSAT would be,
So if you want to look on page 16,
oh, there, I didn't scroll down far.
that's fine. April 12th would be PSAT 9, and sophomores would have no school. That's the red box in the middle. April 15th would be the SAT and the PSAT 10. Seniors and freshmen would have no school.
Thank you.
And we'll just leave these red boxes on it for the rest of the year.
And again, I guess that was asked earlier, but no concerns with our high-stakes students taking the SAT on that Monday. Not worried about their being fresh already. We feel like that's a...
I wouldn't. I mean, the NMSQT is usually given on a Wednesday or a Saturday.
Yeah.
I would think a Monday would be
good.
Same as a Saturday, and if
sweating all
anything
week
better,
long,
you know.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, they'll be doing test prep.
There you go. Which actually, that's a great idea.
They could get one more
Last minute
practice
cramming.
test in. and
Last minute cramming.
I mean, everybody's waiting for the results from the NMSQT, the PSAT, so that we can see, for those who've already taken a paper test, how different is your score. For those who haven't, we're hoping to get some good information about how a student did. We've been told we will never know if a student gets placed into the more challenging questions or not, because we would all love to do a little data and analytics to see how high can you get if you don't go up to the highest, or how low can you fall if you do. But maybe they'll give us that kind of information at some other time. It's not like the map in that every question readjusted. It's a chunk of questions, and then based on that, you go one or two paths, and so.
So, Scott, just one more question then. So, because of this sort of being that like sort of trial year as we're doing this real rollout with this, then does that mean that the reason they were able to account, or they said you can pick your dates, you can shift them and stuff, they may not even offer that as an option come like next year?
It's our understanding that will remain, that
Okay.
it is in
I was curious if we had that,
range.
if we were afforded that flexibility. For
Yeah, our other computer tests, the Illinois Science Assessment, that's also given in a range. And currently, any surveys that the state requires are given in a range. So I think that's certainly in response to some districts that aren't one-to-one or that don't have the computer capacity. One of the things, if you are a iPad district and don't have a keyboard, you have to get an actual keyboard for the writing component. So I mean, there are some extra logistics for online that are sort of baked into the. But we went with Chromebooks.
I was just saying,
Yeah, definitely.
This out. If we'd still be in a rollout phase this year, if we can move it all forward. 100%.
It's also building, there's a lot of discussion at the College Board about AP tests going online. They certainly did it during the pandemic. It didn't go great. So they are offering some of the more writing intensive courses as choice. You can do it online or as paper. But I see those moving more towards computer-based as well.
Okay. All right. Can I have a motion to approve the 2023-2024 April calendar modifications for PSAT 9, PSAT 10, and the SAT as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Marilyn, will you please call the roll?
Member Dillon?
Yes.
Member Rudge?
Yes.
Member Nava?
Yes.
Member Thomas?
Yes.
Member Alvarez?
Yes.
Member Vida Daniels?
Yes.
Member Rivera?
Yes. Okay, great. Our final new business item is the approval of the stipend committee recommendations, and for that, we will go to Director Ed Pietrowski.
Thank you, President Aubert. We do have two recommendations being brought to the board tonight from the stipend committee. If it's okay, I'd like to actually go in reverse order from what's presented. Talk about one moving from a pilot phase to the club phase, and then one that talk about one that already has a stipend that we are making a recommendation for an increase in stipend based on some specific needs of that club and some expansion of that club. So I'd like to start with Polish Club. Polish Club is a club that is currently working in its pilot status. It began as a pilot club in the spring of the 21-22 school year, but given the timing of the school year, it really worked through its pilot year during last school year and has continued that into this school year. At the bottom of page 17 and into page 18, we talk about Polish Club. Polish Club is very similar to other cultural clubs that we have at the school. Greek Club, you heard in the reports today. Ukrainian Club, that's a club that's in pilot status right now. We have some other culture clubs that we have as well. We've had a strong population or a strong group of students who are participating, strong numbers of students who are participating, and it gives them a chance to not only learn about Polish culture, but also learn about the other cultures that are represented. It's not just students who have Polish heritage that participate, but students who are also interested in Polish culture as well. So as part of their clubs, they learn about Polish culture, they connect with students from different backgrounds, and then they have different learning opportunities as it relates to Polish culture, including what everybody loves, getting to eat the food, right? I was part of French Club when I was a student here, and that was like one of the greatest things that we had, going downtown and going to a French restaurant. Polish Club is no different. In addition, Polish Club also participates, as do many of our student clubs, in the LT World Club soccer tournament. You heard that mentioned a couple times as well today, too. Mr. Johannes presented it, and we also heard about it in the student presentation as well. And we're proud that this year at co-curricular night, we had over 50 students that signed up for Polish Club. So we are very happy about the student participation, and there were no concerns from the stipend committee about moving this forward for full club status at essentially that introductory or beginning stipend amount of 2.64, which essentially meets once every other week. As a reminder, for clubs, the percentages are based on the expected amount of student interaction that the club might have. So for approximately every 14.4 student contact hours, that is 1% of that stipend. And so that's how you get this odd 2.64%, because that's what it equates to over the course of a year. That percentage is probably best fitting for clubs that have routine meetings. When we get into the next recommendation for robotics, you see that changes slightly because you have some unknowns with that, namely the amount of competitions, the length of competitions, and the length of season. But at this time, we are recommending that we move forward with Polish Club at a 2.64% stipend, which at that tier 1 amount, and I missed a zero, it is $1,426.30. It's not $14,260, so I apologize for that. That is a big stipend, but that is not what that stipend is. Are there any questions about Polish Club? Okay. Then, going back to the start of this recommendation, we are making a recommendation for an increase in the stipend for robotics. Robotics, as you may recall, is relatively new at Lyons Township High School. This is a club that the stipend committee met about and discussed numerous times in trying to find a way to fit it in with existing clubs. We had a group of students who were very, very interested in starting a robotics team, but the level of student interest didn't quite rise to that level of having a standalone club. It began as an offshoot of the technology club, then moved into what was called the TSA Club, Technology Students of America Club, and it has grown, much like other clubs that we have had that have grown from a club where you're learning a skill to more of a competitive-based club. This has happened with chess, which started out as a faction of Board Games Club and is now a standalone team. The same has happened for robotics. So robotics now fields anywhere between 4 and 5 robotics teams at any given time. Just this past Saturday, they had a competition. It was an all-day competition. It's not uncommon for these competitions to last from about 6:30 in the morning till 6:30 in the evening, with lots of different competitions happening at the same time. This is a club that not only has the opportunity to compete locally against other schools, but against other schools at the state level, schools at the national level, and if they qualify, schools across the globe that compete in robotics. And so when you talk about STEM initiatives and the abilities for schools to have STEM programs and STEM teams, it's really something that is universal and global. And so this is one club that has that opportunity. Currently, the club or the team has a head coach and an assistant coach, with a head coach at a 6% stipend and an assistant coach at a 4% stipend. With the growth of the program, with the number of students that participate, the number of teams, and the amount of competitions and the amount of time that's needed for not only the training, the participation, the teaching, but then supervision of students, we would like to recommend the increase of stipends from 6 and a 4 to a 14 and a 10. This is in line with other competitive clubs that we have, like Model UN, Speech Team, Congressional Debate. While they all differ a little bit on that assistant coach stipend, those others are at about 9.25%. This would be 10. There are also unique responsibilities for all of those, so it is still in line with those. So we are making that recommendation to bring it in line with those clubs that are competitive-based, that do have multiple students and multiple competitions. Are there any questions for robotics team?
Ed, how many students are, I know we have seen an increase. Do you have any sense of how many students are in it currently?
Let me see if I can find the specifics. We have, it ranges from year to year, but let me see if I have the updated numbers for this year. So it's about 32 students on average that are competing every year that they have. And so those teams are generally about 5 to 6 students per team when you're talking about the different teams. And each robot is different. They have different competitions. So it's not necessarily 5 teams doing the same things. It's 5 different teams.
And they would probably not, they wouldn't all probably be competing at the same time?
They may be competing at the same time, depending on the competition they could. So the coaches are kind of bouncing around. And that also is part of the reason why they are very lengthy competitions.
Got it.
Yes, Jim?
So the question I have is, when you're looking at, when we talked about, I can't remember, like, was it a year ago? When there wasn't, they had to turn kids away from the robotics club?
Yeah, it may have been, right. I don't believe that's happening now, as we've been able to expand the program a little bit.
So we're at where we're not turning kids away still
At this
from
point, I don't believe we are. Generally, when you see an expansion of the club, you might have it start with one sponsor, and then as you start seeing more and more students wanting to participate, if it becomes a safety and supervision issue, then we'll add a second coach
I know
to
we
allow
added some
more
robots
capacity.
and we did some other stuff.
Correct.
And then how does this compare to, like, time-wise with sports teams?
Well,
The stipends for that?
this season actually spans all 3. The robotics season actually spans all 3 athletic seasons. They begin the second Monday of the school year, so think late August, and it goes into May. So this goes far beyond the length of those teams. Now, the difference is an athletic team is generally practicing 6 days a week during their season, right? And the seasons vary in length. The team will only practice generally 2 times a week. But that's over the course of the whole year, and then they'll have competition. So when you look at the comparison between student contact hours of an athletic season and then student contact hours over the course of the whole year for robotics, congressional debate, Model UN, those are in line with those.
Oh, that's what I want to make sure. So it's not that one's getting more.
Correct,
equal.
no, yeah.
The time is what's accounted
Correct.
for. Okay.
Correct.
So 2 questions. Are we looking at this starting next year, or are we talking?
This would be for this year that we would
This
make
year.
that change. Yep.
Okay. And it's not contractual, we won't need to do an MOU, this is
No.
something outside of the.
It's part of our negotiated agreement, but we also have within our negotiated agreement the stipend committee that would make those recommendations to the Board of Education.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
Absolutely.
But just a question, so wasn't it last year that we asked for an increase for this club?
It may have been, right, and this has had rapid expansion with this club.
I always love hearing about the clubs that are in pilot status and when they move, and it's just another example of all the many things that we have to offer here, and I love those pilots too, because it's evidence that kids are finding a place and making sure that we have what they need here with those. So that's great. All right.
Thanks for knowing so much about it.
Absolutely.
I think it was for equipment. I think that's what we approved.
Equipment and not.
More robots?
Yeah, I think it was for actual equipment, not the stipend.
And I could look up this specifics.
Because that was the issue, we couldn't accommodate all the students. I think is what it was.
Because we didn't have enough
We had
robots.
enough.
I just want to make sure that all the kids that want to be there can be there, for sure.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. If we don't have any other questions or comments? Yeah? Can I have a motion to approve the stipend committee recommendations as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Marilyn, will you please call the roll?
Member Gretsch?
Yes.
Member Nava?
Yes.
Member Thomas?
Yes.
Member Alvarez?
Yes.
Member Vita Daniels?
Yes.
Member Dillon?
Yes.
Member Albert?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you so much, Ed. Okay, that concludes all of our new business this evening. And next, we have 2 informational items. The first one is an update from the Parent-Teacher Advisory Behavioral Interventions Board Committee. And for that, we will go to Director Dr. Leslie Owens.
Thank you, President Aubert. I'm just going to give a brief update on the, as you said, Parent-Teacher Advisory Behavioral Interventions Committee, or PTABIC, I believe we're calling it for short, although that's not very short.
It's still a mouthful.
We met, I have the good fortune of facilitating the committee with, to two board members, Don Aubert and Tim Labors, and actually a few people sitting either in the audience or around the tables today that were also part of the committee. Total of about 20 committee members, including 4 parent guardians, 2 of whom participated on our student handbook review, so they have a good foundation in kind of where we're moving with all of our documentation and our handbook and our the different things that we're going to cover through this committee. But we were able to meet on November 9th in the morning, and we also were joined by attorneys Michelle Todd and Valerie Robert from Hodges and Louisi to help us focus on our first topic, which is our code of conduct. So we are looking to revise our current code of conduct, which oversees student behavior within our athletics and activities. And they were able to give us a really good foundation in, some of the things that perhaps our code of conduct is missing currently or we'd want to change, gave us a little bit of direction, gave the committee some opportunity to ask questions and have conversation, and then our timeline from there is that we will receive some red line revisions from our attorneys in December, closer to winter break, and then that will be sent to the committee for everybody's review, and then we'll bring the committee back together again probably in February to look at those revisions and start to make some decisions. So again, it was a really good initial conversation on an important topic, and we will continue to work through the committee to make those final revisions and to eventually bring an updated code of conduct to the board and have that be part of our activities in our athletics and our student handbook. I'm happy to answer any questions.
So timing-wise, Leslie, is that for fall then, next year?
Yes, we would be looking to revise the code to be in place for next school year, really probably starting in the summer, because I think our athletics and activities start with some camps and things in the summer, but it would not apply to this year.
Because I know that we just really went through some of that too, like this year, and I know we do revise it next year as needed.
And we would work on, part of the discussion that we had with the committee was, the communication that's needed then with the updates, right? What's a communication plan for making sure students, families, staff are all aware of the updates and have an opportunity to really digest the new code?
So what, can you summarize some of the changes or that are anticipated? Do you guys know what those changes are, or is the plan just to change it based on the needs that you anticipate, or do you already have an idea of?
One of the revisions that was suggested was to bring our code of conduct in line with board policy. So there were a few policies in the code that weren't quite matching. So Michelle Todd's first suggestion was to make sure that obviously board policy is aligned with, or our code of conduct is aligned. And then we talked about the different categories and of kind of infractions. And so looking at those categories, making sure that those are clear, and that in terms of the consequences that are applied, that those are also clear for all student athletes, for students who are involved in activities, for coaches, for families, and making sure that our code of conduct aligns with our sort of our vision, mission, and strategic planning of equity, making sure that all voices are heard in that, and then also, I just lost my train of thought on that. Just making sure that we sort of feel good about our code of conduct, that we feel like it's supporting that we want students to be highly involved in extracurriculars and athletics, but that we're also making sure that if students are having difficulty adhering to rules, that we're able to help correct that.
Thank you.
Sure.
I also liked how we had a really good discussion from everybody at the table, but especially our parents, about the language and the use of verbiage about athletics versus regular discipline. I just thought it was really well led by Dr. Owens. We had some really great discussions, and looking forward to how those changes would be reflected. So thank you for allowing me to
Yeah, it was a great first meeting, and I think there's going to be some great output out of it.
Yeah, Michelle was extremely helpful in bringing that legal perspective to things and giving us the baseline for starting some of the revisions. I think going through the handbook revisions last year, I know a few of us were on that committee, it's hard to revise when you're not really sure what to situate those revisions in, so it was nice to kind of ground everything, our work in, here's the updates from the legal side of things, and then there's some parts within that we can discuss as a committee and decide what we feel is best for LT and for our community. But it was nice to have kind of that grounding foundation.
I understand we're revising, but we had just went through the code of conduct revisions like extensively like a year ago, correct?
The student handbook or the code of conduct?
Well, it was like both, wasn't it?
I would say last year was more handbook. 2 years ago was more code of conduct.
Yeah.
Wasn't it the handbook?
They did the handbook.
It was the handbook.
Yeah.
We include the code in the handbook, so it was in there, but no substantive changes were made. I know that since Dr. Tyrell's been here, she's worked with John Grunke, our athletic director, and Peter Geddes, activities director, to make some updates and changes to our code of conduct, but nothing, I wouldn't say substantive, correct me if I'm wrong on that, Jen, and then also just not in a committee format where we've had a sort of formal ability to have different voices present at that table.
The last legal review of our not handbook, code of conduct was 2 years ago, so spring of 2022.
Oh, okay.
And that was with Francis.
You know, I was getting a little bit kind of murky too on like the timing of it and what was the role, and we just kind of like looked at a very isolated part of that like code of conduct, I believe, and Jill and I met, and then I know you guys were doing the handbook stuff.
Yeah, and that change was really conduct becoming. That was the change that was added to the code of conduct, almost 2 years ago now. There wasn't in before, was that conduct becoming.
And then, because, just really quickly too, just to reiterate, you said there's also parent involvement, right? So that's really a great opportunity for that, to get that feedback and that connection, and then get that information back out to the communities too. So I appreciate that. They're weighing in on that. It's very important. It's kind of a all hands on deck.
And they were very active in the meeting, which is great.
How is parent involvement solicited? How does that happen?
So two of the, I reached out to actually all of the families who had been part of our student handbook review, because they had been part of that and kind of understood the revision process and all had had experiences with a variety of their students here at LT in different activities and athletics. So I just reached out to them to see if they were interested. Two of the parents said they were interested. I spoke with Dr. Tyrell and Dr. Rowe for any further recommendations. Dr. Rowe was able to give 2 additional recommendations on parents who we thought might be interested. Again, kind of looking at the overall number of the committee and keeping it to a committee that can fit in this room and get their work done. But the 2 additional parents that Dr. Rowe had recommended were also interested and agreed to be part of the team.
Okay, some more. I'm sorry, Olivia.
Sorry, I'm just curious. So why was it highlighted about not utilizing restraint or timeout as behavioral interventions?
So that was another portion of the meeting. I gave a brief update at the start of that meeting on our restraint timeout. That's a requirement of the Illinois State Board of Education for us to have a plan for reducing the number of restraint and isolated timeout with mostly specifically special education students, but really any students. And so our committee had met, and so I gave an update. We don't use restraints or an isolated timeout, so the plan we write is a little bit, it's just maintaining not use, right. But we still submit the plan, and there's a committee of professionals here at LT that sit on that committee who are part of that. So we look at just our training opportunities for staff, making sure staff are trained with Crisis Prevention Institute, CPI training, which is how to de-escalate any behavior before you would even need to get to some kind of restraint, and then just making sure that our behavior interventions and any resulting consequences are supportive to students and not in any way, shape, or form isolating or harmful. The state had set a goal. There had been, just to give brief background, there had been far too frequent and widespread the use of restraint and isolated timeout, and it had resulted in some student injuries across the state. And so the state set a goal, and then every district was responsible under that goal to write their own district-wide goals. So we meet quarterly and then provide a new report to the state each July.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Great, thank you so much for that, Leslie, and we look forward to more information as that committee continues to work on these things. And our final informational item is the bond sale update, and we will turn it back to Director Brian Stachak.
Thank you, President O'Bear. Just a quick update for the board, as we've been working on this really for, well, about 6 months now. The bond sale, and obviously we've set aside projects and all that sort of thing. We'll have an update coming for the board at the December 4th meeting, right? December 4th meeting. But on the finance side, we currently are in possession of roughly $14.4 million from the first half of the bond sale. And so just to give you a quick overview here, you may recall with interest rates where they are right now, we had decided to look at 2 separate bond sales, selling what we call sort of small, they're not really small, but something less than $15 million for each sale to avoid arbitrage issues with the IRS on our non-taxable bonds. And the reason we did that is because as soon as we took possession of that money, as you can see, our overall interest rate right around 3.8, 3.9%, we were earning 5.5% interest on that right from the first day that we took possession of those dollars. So that was one of the reasons that we did that. Matter of fact, it's the main reason we did it. And so just to kind of give you an idea of the process, on October 17th, we had a bidding process in which we had 6 bidders who were essentially bidding on the actually, loaning us that money, if you will, and what their interest rates were going to be. And you can see from the documents we had the lowest bidder was Mesero Financial with a true interest cost of 3.875%, which was really good. And again, I was told that having 6 bidders is excellent, and it really has to do with the fact that the district is still AAA rated, which is great. So obviously a lot of people wanting to loan us money because we are a extremely low credit risk for them. And again, so that was on October 17th. We closed on November 7th. And again, as I said, that money, roughly $14.4 million, is now in possession of the district, is invested in an overnight rate. We will look at some, as we get a little better handle on some of the timeline of the projects, we'll start to ladder out some investments with those. But really, we're not losing a whole lot right now, like I said, with that overnight rate being at about 5.5%. So it is invested. We are looking at essentially the second bond sale in January and closing on that at some point at that time. We're hoping for about another $12 million, although I do have to tell you that the interest rates are not kind right now. And ultimately, the history of the district has been that we would do this every 10 years. But in order to get us closer to that $12 million plus the 14 for a number of about $26 million right now, we're having to go out over 11 years. If we didn't go out over 11 years, we'd probably be closer to $24 million in terms of where we would be. So again, it has to do with the interest rates, and we're hopeful that they won't go up too much between now and that additional timeline that we have there. That being said, Linda Byron. Linda is here from Raymond James. And Linda, would you fill in anything that I missed in terms of what I've talked about here? Again, I'm just trying to give that 50,000-foot view. And
No, you did a really good job, actually.
Thanks.
Stole my thunder, but good evening, everyone. I just wanted to say that congratulations on a great bond sale. With the market being so volatile over the last 3 months or so, it's probably actually longer than that, but really bad the last couple of months. You guys got in at a good time, and for you to get good bids, our 6 bids is just incredible. We see a lot of issues only getting like 2 or 3. And what we are finding now is that the market has kind of stabilized. And so the fact that you're doing your second bond issue in the next month, I guess, or a couple weeks.
Well, it'll be probably in January.
Doesn't it close in January? I thought it was you were closing in January.
Yeah, we'll be closing in
So
January.
we'll probably be pricing around mid-December.
Right.
The outlook for the next Fed meeting is no increases, which always helps the bond sales. So I think you're going to be coming at a good time. And hopefully the rates don't rise and you get the same kind of deal as you did. And again, we'll go out for bid like we did on the 2000 or the bonds that you just closed on. And hopefully, you'll get the interest that you had this time. But again, with the AAA rating, it's incredible that, it's very helpful that you got that interest. So.
Yeah. Any questions where we are in terms of right now with that? So again, that's the first sale. We'll look at that second sale. We do have some minor things that we have to go through. I think we have a brief sort of review again with S&P, right, before we
Yeah, and that may be, when did you, I'm not sure when you received your rating.
It was in September.
Okay. They may only send questions that you won't actually have an actual call with them.
Right.
But as long as you have the AAA stable, I wouldn't anticipate any change in that for your next issue.
And there aren't really many districts in the state of Illinois that are AAA rated, which is it's not only a tribute to the way that obviously the board and the administration handle the finance here, but it's the stability of the community, the economic growth in community. They really look at all of that because that's all part of this. And so obviously having that is really a big help to us. And we actually have there was a spreadsheet that I looked at, and we definitely were seeing some better interest rates because of that AAA rating than what similar districts who sold recently were seeing as well, which is a good thing. So again, we're about halfway there, and then we will move on with that second sale here coming up, and then close that in January. And again, you straddle those calendar years here so that we have each of these small issues in the two separate calendar years, and so that's why we'd be closing on that second one in January, and then we'll have some investments with those, ladder those out, and then look at, obviously, when we start the renovations, those dollars will be coming in, we'll be utilizing those to pay that. And I would say that we have projects that are coming up. We have the sort of the bond sale projects and renovations, but really what my plan is to do, and we'll keep track of all of this for the board, but my plan is to use all of those dollars, let's call it $26 million, for any renovations that we have, any projects that we have coming up, even if they're outside of the bond sale projects. And the reason we're doing that is because we need to spend this within 3 years. And so any renovations that we have coming up, we'll spend those dollars. We'll keep track of that separately. And so really what ends up happening then are, the reserve funds that the district has would then go to cover some of the future projects, which we've kind of talked about in the past. So, but that's really why we're going to utilize all of those dollars first, get rid of those bond sale dollars as quickly as we can so that we're not in a situation where the IRS is looking at us after 3 years saying, you didn't meet the deadline here, and so there are consequences for that as well. But I'll keep everybody up to speed on the accounting for all of that and the dollars that are coming in and we're paying out on those projects.
Brian, you just briefly said something about, so the repayment schedule, instead of it normally being the 10 years, it's going to be 11, and is that indicative of the rate that we agreed to get? Is that why, or?
It really came down to us saying we had the opportunity, if we would have gone 10 years, because the rates are, the interest rates are as high as they are right now. And remember, we are capped by how much we can pay back every year, right? So our debt service extension base can only rise by the consumer price index, as all of our other levy does as well. And so trying to fit all of that into what we believe we will have to pay back on an annual basis. If we were only going to go out 10 years right now, I think we were probably in the $24 million range, somewhere in there, based on the interest rates, plus what we could pay back. Yeah, so, and knowing that, the projects are, obviously expensive, we want to try to get as much as we can. We thought, well, let's see if we can get closer to 26 million. We have to go out 11 years to do that. Now, I think the last two or 3 years are callable, if I remember correctly.
Yes, usually, actually, it's I don't think. Usually we go out either 9 or 10 years for a call date. It isn't in here.
Yeah, I think it's the last 2 years when they're.
On your next sale.
Correct.
On this sale, since
these are
shorter issue, they were non-callable.
Right.
But since if this goes out 11 years, your call will probably be in 9 years.
Right.
It depends on price, on the day of pricing, your interest rate will be affected by that call date.
Correct.
But that we'll do an analysis to see if we should go with a 9 or 10-year call.
Right, and then what that means is if they're non-callable, the bonds, then we can't pay them back early. However, with that second sale, I believe we're going to have the last 2 years would be callable, meaning that we can pay that back at that time, and then we can go back out and do it again. So, assuming the district has the finances available, I would hope at that time, the district can pay it back and then go back out with another bond sale at that time. And that can be 9 or 10 years, so.
Okay, so that was going to be my next question, is then when would we be eligible to go back again?
Yeah. Well, technically, the district is eligible to go back. So we'll pay off the first bond, this bond sale, about 5 years up the road, right? So at that point, you can start to go back for more money, but some of the DSEB is already taken up with the second bond sale, so you're not going to go out. You'd go out for a smaller dollar amount than what the district has done every 10 years right now. Just say maybe half of it, right? So at the time, maybe you'd be going out for $15 million, and you'd have to wait another so many years to do that, right?
Yeah.
So the history of the district has been to just take all of it every 10 years and do it that way.
That makes sense.
It doesn't have to be done that way, but you won't have the total amount in proceeds that you would have otherwise. You'd have some, and you'd have to wait again until you pay down that second bond sale, and then continue to move forward from there.
Sure,
Yeah.
given the size of the projects. and stuff.
Right, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Then anything else to add, or?
No, I think everything's covered. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah.
Thank you. You're welcome. Have a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lynn. Appreciate you coming by.
Yeah, and this is, obviously so exciting. We've been talking about this for a number of years now, getting prepared for this, and I know that we're all grateful for the exemplary management of our fiscal situation and being able to maintain that AAA bond rating, keeping healthy reserves. So, very proud of the way that is all managed, that allows us to be in this position. So thank you.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
We're excited to share some really good updates at the December 4th meeting on the projects as well. So.
Great.
Yep.
That's exciting. Excellent. Okay. Well, we will move on, and our final portion of our agenda, before we get to the public participation, is our consent agenda. And the consent agenda tonight includes an item that is a resolution authorizing intervention and proceedings before the State of Illinois Property Tax Appeal Board. This resolution allows for Lyons Township High School District 204 to intervene in property tax cases that are brought to the Property Tax Appeal Board. The resolution also appoints the law firm of Hodges, Louisi, Eisenheimer, Roddick, and Cohn as District 204's legal representation in any of the current and future proceedings before the Property Tax Appeal Board. The consent agenda also includes the following items: payments of bills and financial statements for LTHS and LASI for the month of September 2023, business services, resolution changing lawyers for property tax appeals, human resources items for LTHS and LASI, review and approval of the meeting minutes, open and closed sessions, and overnight student travel. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Mary Lynn, will you please call the roll?
Member Nava?
Yes.
Member Thomas?
Yes.
Member Alvarez?
Yes.
Member Vita Daniels?
Yes.
Member Dillon?
Yes.
Member Gretsch?
Yes.
Member O'Bear?
Yes, sorry, yes. Okay, our final agenda item is the second opportunity, and I'm seeing Marilyn shake her head, so we do not have anyone. With that, I'd like to thank you all for coming. I'd like to wish everybody in this room and our broader community, and certainly everybody at this table, a beautiful and happy and healthy Thanksgiving, and look forward to seeing you all at our next meeting in December. So with that, may I please have a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you so much, everyone. The meeting is adjourned.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving.